So here I was out there protecting the little guy, making money, but handing it directly to these massive fund of funds and endowments who, by the way, are amazing. I have nothing against them. That's great. But there was never the opportunity for anybody else to invest. And so now we have this structure, we have this blockchain, this decentralized way where now look what's happening. The people who are buying our token are providing the capital for which we are a fiduciary. We are then investing that capital for the benefit of the little guy to make money to then give back to the community. So now we have this virtuous cycle where, and we literally sat down to create this. And I said, look, Jonas, I'm only willing to do this if we can create like the dream scenario. And he's like, what's the dream scenario? And I said, the dream scenario is, we help the little guy and we're funded by the little guy and we make money for the little guy. And this is what we created. And I'm super proud of it.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Crypto Weekly podcast, the show where we interview the top movers and shakers in the crypto industry. Today, I'm joined with David Kay, the executive chairman of Liti Capital. David, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks so much for having me. Thrilled to be here.
Yeah, and I'm thrilled to have you. I've been doing a lot of research on Liti Capital and love what you guys are doing. But for those that aren't necessarily as close to the space, can you tell us a little bit about well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about litigation and litigation fundraising. Let's start with that, and then we'll talk about how Liti Capital is changing the game.
Let's do it. I mean, it is, it's a mouthful, right? That's for sure. So I definitely appreciate that. So let's break it down. I think the first thing is, so we are the first private equity firm on the blockchain. So Liti Capital is the first, and to our knowledge, only ability for everybody anywhere in the world to invest in private equity. And we should talk about, why that's unique. In most countries, private equity is only for the 1%. So for example, in the United States, you have to have over $1 million of liquidity in order to get access to what has been, and this is a good Google search while you're listening to this, over the last 10 years of all the asset classes in finance, litigation financing has been the #1 returning asset class. And most people can't invest in it. And most people don't even know what it is because it's just not accessible. And so goal one of Liti Capital is to change that. It's not right. We're in the era of the democratization of finance. We're in the era of the democratization of investing. And we are the democratization of private equity. So that's the first thing. I think in terms of what is litigation financing, well, litigation financing is at its core is the payment of legal fees and other expenses by us at Liti Capital in order to finance a case against someone without you having to take money out of your pocket. So let's do an example. So Mike, let's say HugeCo shows up at the door, all right? And for your podcast, they're willing to offer you $20 million. What do you say? Are you in for 20 million?
Heck yes. Let's do it.
Heck yes. Okay. So they offer you $20 million, and then they put a clause in the contract that says that if you do anything in the time between when you sign the contract and the first 6 months that you're doing podcasts for them that reflect poorly on HugeCo, that you lose your compensation. All right. And it's $20 million. You're excited. HugeCo's great. You say yes, right? Fair?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Okay, great. So you jaywalk. Okay. 2 months in, you jaywalk, and it comes up to HugeCo that you jaywalk, and HugeCo says, don't love that. We're now not paying you your $20 million. Here's the issue that you face. In order to sue HugeCo, it is going to cost you $2 to $4 million to do. Period. Full stop. Okay. Now you have no podcast, you have no employment, you have no $20 million. And you're looking at your bank account. And while I know you're a gazillionaire, right? Let's put that aside for a second and assume that that's more money than you have, or it's such a high percentage of what you have that it's just not reasonable for you to spend it. So what do you do? And I think that the sad answer and the truth is we like to think that the good guys always win or usually win. the truth is that what a lot of people do is they give up and walk away. What some people do is they start to fight, and then huge co will come and they'll say, look, we hear you, we don't want to litigate, we'll give you $2 million to walk away, right? And then what do? That's easy. People take the $2 million, right? Yeah. And so now what's happened, huge co has benefited. They've used the fact that they're huge to benefit to the tune of $18 million. Now, that stuff happens all the time, which is why litigation financing is so lucrative. So now imagine, me, we connected on this podcast, right? We become tight. You give me a call. You're like, what's up, Dave? Look at what Huge Co did. What are we going to do? And I say, look, don't worry about it. We got you. Okay. We will fund the $3 million. Okay. And we'll take, I don't know, let's make it up, right? We'll take 30% of the upside. All right. We'll fund everything. No risk to you. When you sign up, there's no cash out of your pocket. If you lose, there's no risk. Completely riskless for you. Now we come in, and the first thing Huge Co says is, oh, something, right? Because now they realize that there's really going to be a fight. Okay. So Huge Co now knows there's going to be a fight. And we go through the process, and ultimately Huge Co shows up and they say, look, I get it. Jaywalking wasn't a thing. I understand that this is going to be taken all the way to the end. One, the publicity is going to look terrible for them because everybody knows jaywalking is ridiculous. Two, they're probably going to lose, right? And so they come and they say, we'll give you $15 million. All right. Now let's say that you say, what do you say? $15 million?
Might want to take it.
You might want to take it. That's the point.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you definitely want to take it. 100% you want to take it. Okay.
Yeah.
So now of the $15 million, we get 30%. So we put in 3, we get 4.5. We've made a 50% return. Okay. You, at the other hand, are clearing more than $10 million with no risk and no money. But here's the kicker. All right. Here's the really crazy thing as to why it works. Huge Co also hit a home run. Why did Huge Co hit a home run? Because Huge Co saved $5 million. Huge Co set up to pay 20. And because they brought a litigation that they knew they were going to lose, they saved 5. Yeah. So why do these cases exist? Why is litigation financing so lucrative? That is why litigation financing is so lucrative, because at the end of the day, it almost always benefits Huge Co because they do this in situations where they already owe the money, but there's a contract and they take a swing at it. And most of the time it works for them. Right. And most of the time people walk away. And even when I come in, they still benefit at the end of the day. So that is litigation financing in a nutshell. Yeah.
And one amazing example. And I think that really goes to show the good work that you're doing. But two, I think this really hits home why we see in philosophy, like in society, these companies being too big to fail. Right. And it's why so many people are starting to get upset, because truly the legal system is rigged against the little guy. And this is where I think Liti Capital really comes in to help the little guy out, not only in terms of recouping their funds, but also in terms of the investors that are helping to raise that money. So traditionally, and I've heard you say, the traditional litigation financing is only for the 1%, right? It's an illiquid investment, and only the rich can do it. How are you changing that with Liti Capital by, opening that up to everyone on the blockchain?
Yeah, no, look, it's a great question. It is a little bit rigged. The cost of litigation is so high that if you can be the first actor, right? If you are the person who owes somebody money and you don't want to pay, or you want to pay less, and you are a big company, the system is rigged against you, right? The little guy, the big guy, it's rigged for. So I agree. Our goal, look, I don't save babies every day. I don't confuse myself with a charity. We're not. But I do only take cases that we have the white hat on, where somebody has been wronged. And I do it for 2 reasons. One, I've been lucky enough in my career to be very successful, and I can. And 2, it's good business. And so those 2 things dovetail extremely well in litigation financing. And what I am really excited about, and we didn't talk about my background, but I founded and ran $1 billion plus private equity fund in New York for the better part of a decade. I left there about 1.5 years ago, and I've been sitting on boards of large companies. Okay, pretty good, right? Then I got a call from my partner, Jonas Ray, and he convinced me to get out of this nice, wonderful, relaxing life that I was in and jump back into the craziness. And the way he convinced me is based on what you just said, which is that I came from nothing. My parents, and this was always a point of dispute, my parents could not invest in my private equity fund because they don't have $1 million of liquidity. So here I was out there protecting the little guy, making money, but handing it directly to these massive fund of funds and endowments, who, by the way, are amazing. I have nothing against them. That's great. But there was never the opportunity for anybody else to invest. And so now we have this structure, we have this blockchain, this decentralized way where now look what's happening. The people who are buying our token are providing the capital for which we are a fiduciary. We are then investing that capital for the benefit of the little guy to make money to then give back to the community. So now we have this virtuous cycle where, and we literally sat down to create this. And I said, look, Jonas, I'm only willing to do this if we can create like the dream scenario. And he's like, what's the dream scenario? And I said, the dream scenario is, we help the little guy and we're funded by the little guy and we make money for the little guy. And this is what we created. And I'm super proud of it. I've done a lot of things in my life, but this is the thing that I am, from a work perspective anyway, the most proud of.
Yeah, absolutely, and clearly you can just hear in the tone of your voice how passionate you are about what you're doing. I think one of the other things that really stood out to me is that you have said you're allocating 5 to 10% of your profits towards non-revenue generating cases. Can you talk a little bit about that and what that entails?
So exactly. So it didn't stop there. So 5 to 10% of every dollar we raise, not profit, every dollar we raise is going back into the community in the form of giving financing to people who have been scammed or defrauded in the crypto community where the economics wouldn't justify an investment. So I'll tell you another sad truth. If you lost $50,000, it's gone. The cost that it would take you to get back $50,000 or less is more than the $50,000. And so that money is gone. And the scammers and fraudsters in this community are horrible. It's a disease. It's a pestilence. It is completely, it is a huge obstacle that is standing in the way of crypto and blockchain moving to the next level. And we are absolutely dedicated to using the resources we have to make an impact. And the great thing about this is the more money that we are able to raise, the more good we're able to do with the money and make a profit for you. But also, the more money we have to just do the right thing in the community. And this project it is purposely structured to be a project where you can make money, feel good, and give back at the same time, because that was the goal when we created.
Such an amazing proposition. And I think this is truly the power of blockchain, right? This is truly decentralization of power, giving power back to the people and starting to right some of the wrongs that we've seen thus far. Let's talk more about one of your high profile cases that you have coming up. And why don't you kind of introduce the case and how you guys came to take this on?
So this is amazing. So I've been involved in some pretty high profile cases, but this one is the start of this one is kind of my favorite. So as part of our process of giving 5 to 10% back to the community, we have an email. So if you've been scammed or defrauded and you need help, and you don't have the money or the resources, you can email scambusters@litycapital.com. Okay. And one of the emails that came through, one of my guys came up to me and said, "You're not going to believe this email that we got." Do you remember that May 19th Binance event where half the world was impacted? We got an email from a group of 700 traders that need help. And I couldn't believe it. I was so happy to see that. And we got on the phone with them and we spoke to them. And at that point, there had been this Wall Street Journal article that had done, kind of a walkthrough of what happened and how these 700 people got together on Discord through the blockchain to actually form a community to see if together there was something that they could do. And I mean, you're hearing, it was immediate. I immediately felt compelled that we had to do something. And, we struck a deal with them. We're committing at least $5 million to funding this litigation. And it is for everyone. If you have been harmed $10 million or $1, we will represent you for free. There is no money out of pocket. There is no risk. It is simple, right? You just go to BinanceClaim.com. It takes less than 5 minutes to fill out the application. We are stronger together. There's no, I could say it over and over again. It's free. There's no risk, right? At the end of the day, if we lose, you will never know. There's no liability. There's no nothing. If we win, you will get a check with 70% of your winnings sent to you, or we will send it to your wallet address if you give it to us. This is the moment. This is the time when this community needs to stand up and be heard together.
Mm-hmm. Once again, BinanceClaim.com to go and register if you've been harmed. Can I ask what the criteria might be for somebody to go fill out one of those claim forms? Have to be trading on Binance during that time, or what are the specifics?
No, I think the irony of it is that, the claim that we're going to bring and the claim that we see is a claim for, people who have been harmed by Binance's actions or inactions. So to the extent that it was not May 19th, but you were trying to trade and the system froze, or your account, this is a crazy one that we heard about, where we actually were able to work with NBC News to solve this woman's problem. But there's a whole group of people whose accounts were frozen with their cash in it, and customer service will not get back to them or unfreeze the account or give people back their money, right? If you have had issues with Binance at all, come register, BinanceClaim.com, right? We have hired the single best arbitration counsel in the world. They've been rated, White & Case is the #1 rated arbitration counsel in the world 4 of the last 5 years. We're fully funded. And the reality is that May 19th is just the event that was large enough where the community, without us, got together and formed a group that was large enough where the word ultimately got to us and we could finance it. Yeah. But if you have been harmed at any point in the last year, you got to sign up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And from my understanding, this has the potential to be one of the largest consumer class action lawsuits of all time. And so if you've been harmed, please go to BinanceClaim.com and fill out your registration. Let's talk about how big this case is and what some of the precedents that it might set in the legal community for crypto exchanges going forward.
Yeah, this is an important one. So one of the questions that I get asked all the time is, what do I think about regulation, or, is this bad for Binance? And I think one really important thing to discuss, which is that I think what we as a community have allowed people to do is to wrap themselves in community assets when they are not a part of the community. So what I mean by that is that there are things that I believe are community assets: Bitcoin, Ethereum. Those to me are community assets. Those need to be unregulated or minimally regulated because they are for the good of everyone, period. Yeah. Binance is a for-profit corporation that are utilizing community assets to make money off of consumers. That needs to be regulated. There needs to be rules. There needs to be a way for, if that for-profit corporation does something to harm you, that there's some recourse, that there's some place that you can go to get some type of fair treatment. And that line to me is very clear. And what Binance does and what a lot of entities do is they try and wrap themselves in this idea that they shouldn't be regulated, there shouldn't be rules, it's decentralization. That is not true, right? So, and I'll give you one example that I think is to the point: the internet. Okay, the internet started off as being just like blockchain. It allowed for the free flow of information and data to places in the world that we would never have imagined. But at some point, we had to stand up and say, okay, this is big enough now. What are we going to do? And the internet is still largely unregulated. It is still largely free, which is exactly what the blockchain should be. But Amazon, right? Google, companies that utilize the internet for profit, they are not allowed, nor should they be allowed, to go around, take billions of dollars for consumers for using a community asset like the internet, or the next stage of the internet, which is what blockchain is. It is the next evolution of the internet. It's that big, and be able to do so and have there be no recourse. And so I think that line, and making sure that we're clear about that line, and not allowing corporations to blur that line, is a huge part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. And a ginormous lawsuit, and will have ripple effects for years to come. So thank you so much for what you're doing, David. It's amazing to see. We've talked about how to get involved in the Binance case. What if people just want to get involved in Liti Capital? What if somebody wants to be one of those investors fighting for good for the little guy? How would they get
making
involved?
money too?
And
so
making money.
Yeah, it's an important piece. So go to LitiCapital.com. You can go see us on LinkedIn at Liti Capital Official. We're on Twitter. Any place, any social or location that you want to find us, we're easy to find. We're on Uniswap, hit BTC, Bitcoin.com. The trading ticker is wLITI, which just stands for Wrapped Liddy. And we would love to have everyone and anyone participate in this. This is the next generation of fintech. This is the world coming together, being able to invest. Private equity returns, just like everything else, are no longer just for the 1%. Everybody deserves the same opportunity to invest and make money.
Couldn't have said it better myself. David K., thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for what you're doing with Liti Capital. And I can't wait to see the results of the Binance case and everything that you guys are doing. Congratulations.
Thanks, Mike. Really appreciate it.